Good morning. Thank you, Deb. That was beautiful. My name is Pam Wycliffe, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of this congregation. Welcome to everybody here today. Don kind of reminded me, because he almost has this memorized, so I bet you can all just kind of read along with me, because we say this every Sunday. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart is a welcoming community encouraging religious freedom, nourishing individual spiritual and ethical growth, celebrating diversity, and promoting a just and sustainable world. If you'd like to learn more about this fellowship, please look at our website at uuf.org, and it looks lovely these days. And join us after the service for our coffee hour. For this listening enjoyment of all, we ask that this time you turn off your cell phones. And I don't imagine anybody has any pagers. I guess we can take that off. Also, if you need hearing support, please ask for help at the sound desk in the back. Thank you. Enjoy the morning. And as a reminder, take up your chairs after the service for the cleaning for this week. Please.
Good morning. I'm Judy Darnell, and I have Fellowship Life this morning. Most of you know that I entertain our children most Sundays during the service. Something that I would like to add is to have a guest adult with me during the class each week to read a story or assist with the craft, so that you can get to know our children better. They're pretty wonderful. I'd love to have you visit, so find me during coffee hour to let me know that you are interested. 10,000 Villages is seeking volunteers. To learn more about this opportunity to help our neighbors around the world, email them at the address I will post after the service. The next UUFE Euchre games will be this afternoon at 4 o'clock. There will not be soup available. I'm sorry. I wrote it right in my notes. Next Sunday at 4 o'clock, there will not be soup available, but maybe some cookies. Come and enjoy playing euchre, and feel free to bring your friends. For the past year, Mike and I have been striving to publish our fellowship focus in an informative and timely manner each month. We think that we have done a pretty good job, but now it is time to pass the focus on to someone else after we send out our June issue at the end of May. If you'd like the focus to continue as it is, or if you would like to see it done right, here's your chance. Contact one of the board members to let them know that you are interested. The Heart of the Circle Pagans, our Crux group, will host an Ostara celebration Saturday the 18th to greet the spring equinox. Bunnies, chicks, and eggs will decorate their space. Bring a dish to share afterwards for a potluck meal. Doors open here at UUFE about 5 o'clock, and ritual will begin around 5:30. Last week, our attendance was 50 adults and children here and on Zoom. Our collection brought us $102, which was shared with the Humane Society. Thank you.
Sorry, forgot to call this in. I know you'll get other reminders, but remember next Sunday is when the time changes. So spring forward so you don't miss our wonderful service next Sunday.
Something else I forgot to add is that immediately after the service, we will have a congregational meeting to approve the changes in our bylaws. So be sure to stick around after the prelude.
We ring the gong 3 times. Once for those who came before us and made a place for us. Once for those who are here now. And once for those who will come after us and build on the dream. Our chalice lighting this morning is by the Reverend Susan McGinn, slightly modified for our weather outside. From beyond the playful summer clouds, beyond the earth's thin blue line, from beyond the bright moon and meteor showers, we hear the call to look and listen carefully, to turn away from a world that buys and sells happiness, to fully experience the luring whisper of your heart's truth. Why not today? Why not now? We are here together and at home in this evolving place, home in this ever-changing breath and body, home in this slightly frozen morning, even as it reaches towards a cool high noon. We hear the call from far beyond and deep within, and we do not hear it alone. Come, let us worship together. Please join me in reciting our unison covenant, which is in your order of service and on the screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. Our offering this morning, our loose plate offering, is normally shared with an agency who shares our values, but today, as is usually the case with First Sunday, it will go solely to our UUFE Sustainability Fund to maintain our building and grounds. Please give generously.
Good morning. I'm Mary Perrin, and I mused a lot this week about what I would talk about. And I know the theme for the month is vulnerability, and I don't want to talk about that. And I know the theme for today is becoming a better person. And I'm not sure, how much better I can get to be at this age, but Friday morning, I got up at 4 o'clock to take a friend to South Bend to have an MRI with anesthesia. And I was exhausted when I got home at 1:30, just exhausted. And I think that there really is balance in the world. And Saturday morning, I got up and put my sweats on over my jammies and went out to shovel that heavy stuff off my driveway so I could get out that day. And the snowplow had come by and had, 2 gigantic hunks of ice and compacted snow, and the shovel wouldn't break it up. And, I got the driveway shoveled, but not that at the end. And this young man was using his snow blower down the sidewalk opposite me. And he came across, and I said, I can't get those things. And he said, oh, I'll get them for you. And he picked one of them up like this, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I had picked one up about like that, and it was heavy. And he moved it, and he got the other one smashed up and blew it all off. And I said, how much do I owe you, sir? And he said, nothing. So I think there's balance in the universe. When you can do something good comes out of it. And when you do something really nasty and bad, you usually get that back. Thank you.
going to have a silent meditation today, which I will open and close with the gong, and a reading that I want to share prior to that. And it's slightly modified for today, but it is entitled, I Want to Be Better, and it's by the Reverend Howard Thurman. The concern which I lay before you today is my need to be better. I want to be better than I am in my most ordinary day-to-day contacts, with my friends, with my family, with my casual contacts, with my business relations, with my associates in work and play. I want to be better than I am in the responsibilities that are mine. I am conscious of many petty resentments. I'm conscious of my increasing hostility toward certain people. I'm conscious of the effort to be pleasing for effect, not because it is a genuine feeling on my part. I'm conscious of a tendency to shift to other shoulders burdens that are clearly my own. I want to be better in the quality of my religious experience. I want to develop an honest and clear reflection, meditation, and prayer life. I want to develop a sensitiveness to others in my own life. I want to develop a charitableness toward my fellow people that is greater even than my most exaggerated pretensions. I want to be better than I am. I lay bare this need and this desire before you in the quietness of this moment.
Our first hymn this morning is in the Teal hymnal, and there's only one verse in the text, but there's 3 verses. We're going to note in your order of service, we're going to replace the "May I be filled" on the second verse with "May you be filled" on the third verse with "May we be filled." Okay? Will you stand if you're willing and able and sing number 1031 in the
Good morning. The prodigal son has returned. And here we go again. I preach today. What happens? You got to clean up after me. I want to thank you for having me again. I canceled on you twice already, so thank you for giving me another chance. First time I canceled, I got a viral infection, and I was misdiagnosed and given the wrong medication. That didn't work too well. And so I was sick for about 2 months. And then the second time, I had cataract surgery, and the surgery went well. They did the right eye first, and that went well. But this was 2030, and this was still 2400. So I was just kind of in a daze, and things were shifting, so I just didn't see well. So now with both of them done, this is still 2030, this is 25.5. So I see pretty well. I still need reading glasses at times, and I've got a pair of regular glasses coming to make it 20/20 so I can see better when I drive. But 20/400 was not good. And as I got older, the vision was getting worse, and I thought I was going to have to wear contacts just to see my glasses. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I want to speak to you today. I'm going to try to do this without my reading glasses. I printed it pretty big. I'm going to speak to you today about being a better person. But I want to tell you a joke first. See, I hadn't been here in a while, and I forgot to do that. There are people who don't think this is funny. I think it's hilarious. A joke about a man who was stranded on an island, been there for decades. And he was pretty happy there. At first he wasn't, but now he's pretty happy, made the island his, managed to develop some type of communications with some of the animals. They became his pets. And then one day he looked out and saw a boat coming ashore. Got a little nervous. What do they want? Are they going to take over my island? Are they going to hurt me? You know, all that catastrophic thinking that we do. So the boat landed, 6 people got off, very friendly, had a nice conversation with them. The resident said, let me take you on a tour. Let me show you what I did. Let me show you how I made this my home. So he took them on a tour, and they were kind of pleased with what he'd done to the island. They were pretty impressed. Then they came upon a structure, and one of the visitors said, well, what's that? He said, that's my home. After we finish the tour, I'll take you in and show you how I fixed it up and just made it my home. Very comfortable. Went a little further, saw another structure. Another visitor said, well, what's that? He said, that's where I go to church. I got all set up, pews, the pulpit, just really nice. Walked a little bit further, saw one more structure. Another visitor said, well, what's that? That's where I used to go to church. Thank you for thinking it's funny. Or you humored me. Either way, you laughed, so. But the point of the joke you obviously get is even one person can't get along sometimes in church. So I want to talk today about how to be a better person. And this was going to be, I had this title all picked out when I was supposed to preach here several months ago. So see, you've had 2 months now to be not a better person. 2 more months to sin, if we could use evangelical language here. The problem with the sermon title about how to be a better person is that usually you just get cliche, trite expressions. Follow the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What does that mean? Yeah, it sounds good, but what does it mean? Accept change. But what does that mean? It all sounds nice. Little points, little platitudes. Do the right thing. Okay. But what does that mean? Does it mean different things to different people? Of course it does. Be grateful. We hear that all the time, don't we? Be grateful, express gratitude. But what does that mean? Forgive. That's a big one. Again, what does that mean? Love everybody. Well, that sounds great, doesn't it? But what does that mean? Be yourself. Well, who am I if I'm not myself? So what does that mean? Different denominations have different takes on theology, as you know, on philosophy. And one of the things I really like, as you know, I have a Unitarian background from my father, who declared we were Unitarians in 1963, 2 years after the merger with the Universalists. And then when I got in college, I studied the Society of Friends, the Quakers, and decided, well, I'm going to be a Quaker. And so I've gone back and forth. The Society of Friends was founded in 1652, the Quakers, by a man named George Fox, who thought the Church of England was all wrong. And he got in a lot of trouble, because Fox was kind of a radical. He would rush into Anglican churches on Sunday morning, and he'd disrupt the services, tell the priests you're all wrong, and he'd preach his own sermon. Could you imagine if somebody did that here? They got in a lot of trouble. And after a period of time, the Society of Friends broke into what's called yearly meetings. Indiana yearly meeting, Illinois yearly meeting, Ohio yearly meeting. And each of these yearly meetings had their own little book of discipline, or faith and practice. And in the faith and practice, there are things called the queries. And I'm going to read a few of these from the Ohio Yearly Meeting Book of Discipline. Here we go. Do you cherish a forgiving spirit and strive to walk in love? Are we ever mindful to love our neighbor as ourselves? Are our homes places of peace, joy, and contentment? Are they an influence for good in the neighborhood, community, and country? Are we sensitive to the needs of those around us who may be in less fortunate circumstances? Do we live in the life and power which takes away the occasion of all wars? Do we observe simplicity and a manner of living, sincerity in speech, and modesty in apparel? Also called Questions for Spiritual Growth. But the problem with the queries, even though they're more explicit than what I just read, and the problem with what I read about how to be a better person, is what do they say? What do they mean? Because they do not explain how to demonstrate those things. How do we demonstrate following the golden rule? It's not good enough to say practice the golden rule. How do we practice it? How do we demonstrate that? It's not good enough to say accept change. How do we accept change? We live in a changing world. And as I told you in my very first sermon, which I'm sure you remember quite well, of course you do, one of the keys to spiritual maturity is the ability to adapt to change. But again, what does that mean? How do we demonstrate gratitude? How do we do that? How do we demonstrate our love for everybody? How do we demonstrate being ourselves? So the problem is demonstration. How do we demonstrate? It's not good enough to have a bunch of points, a bunch of do this. It's how do we demonstrate? Because that's the essence of faith of any religion, isn't it? Practicing it and demonstrating it. So I have 4 things here. How to be a better person in the new year. You give to others. That's not just trite, because I'm going to show you how to demonstrate that. And we don't demonstrate it by the typical Christian response to tragedy. We don't demonstrate it by the typical Christian response of seeing people in trouble or people in need or people homeless or people hungry or children being abused. We don't demonstrate it with the typical Christian response of, I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers. And while there's nothing wrong with that, while that for many of us can be very noble to think about people in our thoughts and prayers, what else needs to be done? Because quite often, we don't see anything else being done by a majority of Christians who say, I will keep you in my thoughts and prayers. That's as far as it goes. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. So how do we demonstrate that? Let me read you a Chinese proverb. If you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. If you want happiness for the rest of your life, if you want happiness for the rest of your life, help somebody. That's the demonstration. But it goes further than that. How do you help? Whatever somebody needs, whatever we are aware of, no matter what it is, we find a way to meet that need, to meet that challenge. We find a way to meet it. We don't just step back and say, I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers. We don't just step back and say, if you need anything, let me know. Of course they need something. I always thought that was kind of an asinine question. You see somebody in abject poverty, you see somebody who's abused, and you say, if you need anything, let me know. We should automatically know what they need. If for no other reason, many of us have been in those situations and circumstances ourselves. And as a Catholic theologian hearing you and said, what did he say? Just slipped my mind. I'll think of it in a second. I should have written it down. Here we go. Only the wounded are authentic healers. So those of us who've been wounded, those of us who have been hurt, those of us who have been in dire circumstances, those of us who have had tragedies in our lives, how dare we tell somebody, if you need anything, let me know? Because we know from our own experiences what we need. Secondly, be respectful in relationships. That sounds trite, but there's a way to demonstrate that. By being respectful in relationship, that means that we accept those that we are in relationships with. We accept them as they are. We don't try to change them. See, that's what happens in so many relationships. There's an attitude of, I really like this person, and when I get with them, I'm going to change them. And that's the reasons for so many divorces and separations in this country. That attitude that we are better than the person that we are with, and while we may not like some things about them while we're going with them, that's okay. Because once I get into this relationship, once we get together, once we get married or live together, whatever, I can change this person. And if there's one thing that we are really resistant to as human beings, it's somebody else trying to tell us how to live. Somebody else trying to tell us that we're wrong. Somebody else trying to tell us that we need to change. We need to be respectful in relationships. We need to accept the other person as they are, whether we accept their belief system or whatever it is about them we may not like. We're in this relationship, so we're going to learn to adapt. There's that learning to accept change, learn to adapt. Not trying to change, not ridiculing because they do things or say things we don't like, but accepting them as they are. Respecting their right to be an individual. Respecting their right to be an individual. See, sometimes when we get into relationships, we want to have this attitude that we're going to be one. You're going to be following my lead. You're going to be doing what I say, what I want you to do. I'm not going to respect anything about you, your opinion, the way you look, the way you dress. I'm going to change you. So we need to respect in relationships. Then we need to learn how to be responsible. We don't live in a very responsible society, do we? It's always somebody else's fault when we engage in bad behaviors or bad conduct. Always somebody else's fault. We never take responsibility. And we see that a lot in domestic violence. Well, if you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have pushed you. If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have hit you. Not taking responsibility for your own actions and behaviors. You are acting the way you want to act. You are behaving the way you want to behave because that's what you want to do. And nobody can say anything to make you angry and make you hit and push and shove and throw. These are individual choices that we are making. And we're being irresponsible when we blame our behaviors and our feelings on other people. We need to learn to take responsibility. That's how we demonstrate taking responsibility, by owning up to our own behaviors, our own choices, our own thoughts, our own feelings, and our own conduct. And then, number 4, reaching out. Reaching out to those unlike us. I touched upon this a little bit in my very first sermon. Now, I was going to say this morning, look around. Look around you. But I can't do that this morning. I was going to say, look around you, you don't see one single African American here. That's not uncommon in many Unitarian Universalist churches. And I don't understand that. I don't understand that. This is a denomination that has stood at the forefront of the civil rights movement. Unitarian Universalists died to give African Americans civil rights, equal rights in this country. As I mentioned in my first sermon here, we remember James Reed, the Unitarian minister from Boston, who was killed by the Klan in Selma, Alabama, as he was coming out of a restaurant because he was there marching for equal rights. Viola Luisi, Unitarian layperson from Detroit, Michigan, drove to Selma, Alabama to participate in the march. Drove some African American youth home after a march. Klansmen followed them, pulled up beside, shot her and killed her. Unitarian Universalists have sacrificed their lives for equality for African Americans, and we have done a miserable job as a denomination and reaching out to the African American community. There's how we demonstrate that. What are we doing to reach out to that community? What are we doing? How are we telling our story to the African American community? I think that's something we really need to think very hard about as we look around. As we look around. And it's just not here, it's in most churches. When I was in Georgia, Augusta, Georgia, no African Americans at all. Jackson, Mississippi, one African American. Indianapolis, Indiana, All Souls Unitarian Church, huge congregation. When I was there, when I was at Fort Benjamin Harrison, no African Americans. Why is that? Why is that? Because we're not doing our job and reaching out to that community. Telling a story of love. And there's no greater love as a denomination than to reach out like we have done in our history for the equality of the African American race. That's how it was demonstrated. How are we demonstrating that now? And we say, well, I invite. That's not good enough. I invite. Are you telling the story of our denomination? Are you showing love and kindness as you invite? Are you telling them about your individual congregation? Are you becoming friends? Are you inviting them over to our homes? Are you going out to dinner with them, to lunch with them? Are you spending time with them? That's how you demonstrate reaching out to those who are not like us. Lip service doesn't pay. It just doesn't. Anybody can provide lip service. And where does that get us? It gets us nowhere. It gets us where we are today. One African American person today in our congregation. Not good enough. So I'm going to challenge you to demonstrate reaching out to those unlike us by doing more than you're doing. Now, does that mean some of you aren't doing it? I don't know, perhaps. You know, surveys are taken every year. Why do you go to church? You know why most newcomers come to church? The number one reason has been for 20 years. Somebody invited them. So who did we invite this morning? And are they here? If they're not here, did we fail in our invitation? Perhaps. Did we get to know this person? Or did we just knock on the door and like to invite you to church, see you, bye? That's what we do a lot of times, isn't it? We need to do more. We need to demonstrate that we honestly care about these people. And we do. We have a history of caring. But somewhere along the line, we kind of lost that ability to care as deeply as we need to. So I would challenge you this morning to reach out, to care more deeply, to demonstrate more effectively, and to truly, genuinely build our faith with those unlike us. Amen. So there's no talk back? Hey, that's okay. I'll pass on that today. Want to take my place and talk back?
I wasn't brave enough to step up and stop you when you said, "Has anybody ever challenged somebody speaking in the pulpit?" But I didn't. This verse, this hymn number 121, we're going to sing 4 verses, 1, 2, and 4. That's what Lizzie will be playing. So if we sing more than 3 verses, we'll be singing by ourselves. So stand if you're willing and able to sing 121. It's 2 pages. It's long. We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where and leaves go free. Lord of gladness is ours all morning. Oh, we'll build a promised land. Come to the land where sisters and brothers are led by God. Us to step Thanks for keeping up.
I want to thank you again for having me back. I don't know why. I was kind of nervous this morning. Maybe because I was hoping I wouldn't have to constantly reach for my glasses, that I could see my big print. And I did all right, I think. So let's have the benediction. Let us go now, as people of faith, willing to demonstrate that faith, not just in words, but in deeds. Not just in creeds, but in deeds. Action, practice, demonstration. Amen.
I've got a surprise. Please stand as you're able and sing. Let's sing to close our postlude, hymn number 128.